to Rasta all over. But as we give thanks to the elder, carry some of the history where it happened around Claudius Henry time and share with I and I. Over the years, people tend to link Rasta to violence, you know, and some of the perceptions say because the Bible doctrine violent and Rasta deal with the Bible, so that is where the violent stem from. But is violent brought I and I in the West, you know. Is violently them take away I and brought I and I in the Western Hemisphere. So hear what them say about Rasta. Them say the great minority of Rastafari brethren are peaceful citizens who do not believe in violence. Nevertheless, so this thing now, them say the great man, this is where them write the university and tell the people. So we don't believe in, we know violence, we feel violence is part of we. And violence we have to use to survive too. Yeah. You got to have even rebel things, and people and places.
Yes, so like I said, today we're going to do a special program. And Rastani already set the foundation for what I'm going to discuss now. Today we're going to put the spotlight on Jamaica's first treason felony trial featuring the Rastafarian. Repeat, Jamaica's first and only treason felony trial featuring the Rastafarian. So, there was a treason trial many, many years ago. And since then, all kind of things happen in Jamaica, but it never reached the level of treason. Yeah? It reached the level of felony, but not treason. So now, the only time them ever have a treason trial in Jamaica, it was Rastafarian that was put on trial for treason. So make we go into the record now, because I keep telling you all the time that the scholars them only talk about selective part of the struggle. So them talk about Coral Garden, and that's what we are being Coral Garden down from that time till now. So if you listen to the scholars, not never go on nowhere else in a Jamaica. Rasta never happened to Rasta. So here it go now, the report me I go now upon Claudius Henry. Trial. It was a brief paragraph in the Star newspaper, 1960, that led to the diffusing of what many regard as a ticking time bomb. And when the dust cleared, the people of Jamaica were stalled to learn the following. 4 British soldiers of the Royal Hampshire Regiment, then in camp at Upper Camp, were ambushed and shot, 2 fatally in bushes near an abandoned Rastafarian camp in the rugged and treacherous terrain of Sligo, St. Catherine. An unspecified amount of arms and ammunition, including a submachine gun, was retrieved from an alleged missionaries who had been hiding in the area regarded as one of the most rugged and mountainous pathway in St. Catherine. 4 men, Ronald Henry, son of Reverend Claudius Henry, reputed head of the African Reformed Church, Al Thomas, William Jeter, and Howard Rollins, all United States national and member of the U.S. Marine, were taken into custody by a military and police unit from a house at Orange Grove, 2 miles out of Sligo. Reverend Claudius Henry, now deceased, referred to as the Repair of the Beach, and who led a Rastafarian sect, has been taken into custody. With him, his reputed wife, Edna, and 14 other members of the cult. Yeah. Make that one the sink in. The cult. I might come from the days when I a cult. So maybe me still have some cult behavior. Maybe, but I still have some cult culture. The then West Indian Regiment, with supporting officers from the British Army, still resident in Jamaica and member of the Jamaica Constable Force, making a total of 400 military personnel and 100 policemen, were part of what was described as at the time as an all-out counter-attack on the enemy of the state. Yeah. Rastafari and Rastafarian is and always enemy of the state. Wherever you reside, you are considered as enemy of the state. Pin that and never forget that. Among the others, they also took into custody Everidge Morgan, a Jamaican by birth, and another American national named David Ambrister. These men were alleged to have entered the country with the intent to overthrow the government of the day. Yeah. I want you to note that this was a team of Rasta from the USA. Yeah, our brothers from the USA, particularly from the army. Yeah. Come in for help, I and I. This was the first treason case record in Jamaica at the time. I don't know of any other treason case since then. According to the prosecutor, the enacting law came into effect in 1869, and there never was a treason felony case since then or even now. The jury therefore was making history by sitting on the instant case. To facilitate this trial, the dock of the number 1 Home Circuit Court had to be extended. Yeah. But before this sensational trial reached the Home Circuit Court following the report in the newspaper, my newspaper editor, the late L.K. Sutherland, assigned me, Miss Ebert, to interview Reverend Claudius Henry at his Rosalie Avenue headquarters. It was an assignment I would never forget. So when the matter about nobody never used to talk to Rasta back then, Miss Ebert did talk to Claudius Henry, and we are going out here now. So you can hear for yourself what this was all about. We arrived there about 10:30 a.m. The driver deposited me, Miss Ebert, in front of a large gate of steel with a small inner gate, reversed as if he had seen a ghost, and took off in a cloud of dust. I was on my own. Putting on a bold front, I knocked on the gate with a small stone. I heard the pulling of a bolt that echoed. As the inner gate opened, a voice inquired of my mission. I replied that I was sent by the newspaper to interview Reverend Claudius Henry. The voice said, "Come in." I pushed my head in a straighten up to find myself staring into the barrel of 7 rifles. I don't want to come go on like an lamb to the slaughter like Rasta. A 7 Bible shit with it greet her with. 7 rifles we greet the interviewer with. 7 rifles. The men behind the guns were bearded, wore dreadlocks. Every puff of smoke were exhaled into my confused face. The smell of ganja was unmistakable. "Forward," command one of the 7. I felt a gun sticking me in the small of my back. I moved mechanically in the direction to which I was guided. I was too numb to even feel afraid. Sitting in a large chair as if he had been enthroned was the Reverend Mr. Claudius Henry. He was robed in white, and he held a staff or a rod in his right hand. He had 2 men standing beside but slightly behind him. The one to his right was later identified as Calvert Cloud Beckford, a.k.a. Thunder, who according to testimony trial would roll no more. Sorry. It later emerged sorry. It later emerged that among 3 bodies unearthed from an abandoned Rastafarian camp at Red Hills in St. Andrew following the capture of the fugitive was Thunder. The other 2 dead men were Gerald Scott and R. McDonald, but I will come back to that. For the next 10 hours, I was to undergo the most rigorous questioning covering my personal and professional life, the life of my colleagues at the newspaper, especially the writer of that paragraph in the Star, his home address, telephone number, where he dined and had drink, etc. All my answers were taken down in writing. Of course, I knew not where my colleagues lived, dined, or drink. After about 4 hours of grilling, it was Thunder who announced the woman is a spy. We have to get rid of her. My heart sank. I had been standing all that time. Now I looked down at my feet as if imploring them to run for my life. But where could I run? I asked myself. Viewing the black Jesus, suddenly the Reverend gentleman spoke. No, let me deal with this. He said, those were the first kind words I had heard in almost 5 hours. Then he offered me a seat. I was weary, hungry, thirsty, but above all, fearful. Thunder was not at all pleased with how Reverend Henry was angling the matter, and he said as much. It was clear, however, who was in charge. The premises were full of chanting Rastafari clad in black uniform. There was singing and dancing and smoking and the beating of drums. A lot of arms were visible. In all of this, all through of an interview, I left my head. I tried to remain calm, but all I could think of was my safety getting out of there alive. I answered a few more questions posed by Reverend Henry as politely as I could. Then he asked me if I would like to be taken on a tour of his inner sanctum to see the black Jesus and his mother Mary. I was happy to do so. Thunder again object, but to no avail. And so I was taken inside. I beheld the most exquisitely adorned altar in black gold, and at the top, looking down, majestically, was a carving in wood of the black Jesus. On a pedestal nearby was a similar carving of the Virgin Mary. Black-scented candle glowed dimly as we tiptoed to other rooms, where I saw breathtaking pieces of sculpture reminiscent of Africa and African culture. I would have liked to ask the Reverend gentleman a multiplicity of questions, but the fragility of the moment did not lend itself to such risk-taking. We returned to the porch. I was left sitting there for what seems like an eternity. I could hear voices inside. It appeared to me as if my fate was being decided. What was troubling me, though, was that no one from the newspaper had bothered to check to see what had happened to me. Day turned to night. I was guarded all around. I just sat there and prayed for deliverance. Then finally, Reverend Henry, accompanied by Thunder, joined me on the porch. He advised me that I was being released. on condition that nothing I had seen or heard would be reported in the newspaper or reported to any of my colleagues or family members. Of course, I agree. I was also advised that I would be watched closely from henceforth. Well, the armed guard were instructed to open the inner gate and set me free. I was wearing a 4-inch high stilettos, but once outside I never stopped running until I reached Denham Town Police Station, that in my place. One Tuesday left me and I never miss it till I reached the station. The police called my office and a driver was sent to fetch me. The editor, the late Dr. Theodore Steele, saw red when he heard the story. The news editor came pretty close to losing his job. Of course, Ellery, the Reverend Claudius Henry, his wife Edna, and 14 others were taken before the court, having been charged with 3 counts of treason felony. During that long, drawn-out trial that followed month after my adventure, Reverend Henry, from his position in the prison dock, was to remind me on more than one occasion that it was him who had spared my life that memorable Saturday. At a later trial, his son, Ronald Henry, and the other who were charged with several counts of murder were also tried, convicted, sentenced to death, and hung on the gallows at the St. Catherine District Prison. Yeah. Soak that in for a minute. What them say? Them try Henry's son with a few others, find them guilty, and hang them. Yeah, hang them high until they are dead. Now, the question is, why we don't hear nothing about this history? What is so important about Coral Garden as opposed to this history? History is history. We cannot be selective in our history and what we embrace today. Anyway, Justice Herbert Duffus, later Chief Justice, a man that I know, a man that I come before already, now deceased, and a jury sitting in the number 1 Home Circuit Court, heard all about the plot which the prosecution alleged was hatched in order to overthrow the government of Jamaica. Yeah, that's why I hear it as not history. Because the government is very ashamed of that history. But I and I, Rasta, proud. And that's why I'm here telling that history. This is no water down story. And this is no Coral Garden story. This is Claudius Henry history. Rastafari revolutionary history. Yeah. Marshalling the case for the prosecution was Crown Counsel Huntley Monroe, later QC and Director of Public Prosecution. An associate with him was Attorney L.L. Roberton. Yeah, I man personally know this cat, Roberton, and have dealings with him too. Yeah. In another episode, I will tell you of my dealings with this cat, Roberton. Later, presiding judge. Both now deceased. Yeah. Jahbunny still there can talk about Roberton. Roberton are the first man to send me go a hell as a juvenile. Yeah. That's another episode. The defendant, Reverend Henry, his wife, and 14 followers. So in all, it was what? 16 of them on trial. Were represented by Peter Evans, an Irish barrister at law, practicing in Jamaica at the time. Arising out of the case, Evans was subsequently charged with perverting the course of justice, tried in the Home Circuit Court, and sentenced by the late Justice Weddington to 9 months in prison at hard labor. Can you believe that, people? That as a Rasta, you're mouthpiece, your barrister, your lawyer, your solicitor, any big deal you want to call it. Him end up pan trial to with you, your barrister, you know. And him end up get 9 months of prison with you. So it does go for show how much we tickle them wheel. Yeah, for lacking a better word, we tickle them wheel. Mm-hmm. You're going to hear certain words we never hear before when me talk. His appeal was subsequently allowed, but by then he had already served most of his sentence, and his release from prison, he left Jamaica and returned to his homeland, Ireland. The Irishman, you know. So you could have considered him Rasta John Brown. Just like how Malcolm talked about the John Brown of the US. This is our John Brown. What is his name again? I repeat his name. His name is Peter Evans. Yeah, Irish barrister. See? Barrister. Him is our John Brown, Irishman. Him put himself on the line, go to prison with Henry. These are the history we're supposed to know when we talk about good white people. Evans is a good white man. Yeah, John Brown is a good white man. We have to know who the good white people them is. We can't talk about no one love. The one love including Evans and John Brown. Because them put in work. The treason felony case was a cause deliberate. The era around the Supreme Court was cordoned off. Armed soldier and police personnel were everywhere. Visitors to the court, witnesses and all were thoroughly searched before entry could begin. It was a time of high security alert. The government was taking no chances. At the end of a 19-day trial, the jury retired for 68 minutes and returned an unanimous verdict of guilty against the 57-year-old Reverend Henry, his wife, and 12 of his followers, and all 3 counts of indictment. Before passing the longest sentence on Henry himself, that of 10-year imprisonment at hard labor, and each count, the sentence to run concurrently, Justice Duffus told him, it is clear and clear beyond any doubt that the person charged attempt to influence the government of this country properly constitute by highly unlawful means. It is also clear and clear beyond any doubt, also in my mind, that the chief instigator and promoter is you, Claudius Henry, a man who called himself an appointed prophet of God, a man who threw scorn on all other religion in Jamaica, who heard his counsel say, never scorn any man religion. The judge described the sentence as moderate and merciful. The 14 accused 27-year-old ice cream vendor Fitz Albert Brooks was convicted on the first of the 3 counts only and sentenced to 3 years imprisonment at hard labor. The other received sentence ranging from 3 to 5 years. Edna Fisher, Henry's reputed wife, received a sentence of 3 years imprisonment at hard labor, but died in prison before complete her sentence. Look at that. Look at that. The reverend wife get 3 years and dead. Don't a GP. Yeah, cause don't say she do for her sentence. She dead in the woman's section of GP penitentiary, which is a slave ship. As far Ronald Henry and his court, the 7-day manhunt by the military and police ended in the capture of at Orange Grove in St. Catherine. The hunt was under the command of Lieutenant Colonel David Smith and Major Dustin Robinson. Commissioner of Police L.P.R. Browning, Assistant Commissioner of Police A. Garden London, later Police Commissioner, all now deceased. Every one of them dead. And that was in my lifetime. So when some little guys hear me attack my history when me having in my head about the strad, it's different from the water down thing where you keep a talk about. Ronald Henry and the other 3 American nationals had fallen asleep on the floor of the court of the house of a rural shopkeeper. Make I read that again. Ronald Henry and the other 3 American nationals had fallen asleep on the floor of the house of a rural shopkeeper who told police later that they had come to his place demanding food and drink, which he was forced to supply. So what am I tell you, say, is an informer. Yeah, is an informer, a peasant, an informer who give away these vanguard. The informer testified at the trial that he managed to leave after they fell asleep, and he contacted the police. A watch was placed on the house. Yeah, them man they sound like them was like Boy Scout to me, elementary Boy Scout, because we know say somebody at all time would have to have this informer under the nozzle. Yeah, there's no way him could have screeched go call no police pan we. Trust me, panda one day. There is no way this informer could have screeched it out of that the house there. Because there's no way me and my team are going to fall asleep at one time. No, I really thought me a go in, I not water down nothing, you know. On the early morning of July 26, 1960, a military and police unit descended on the house and ordered the 4 men to come out with your hands up. Yeah. So those were the time when them so sure themselves, them tell us, stick it up, hands in the air and come out. Yeah. No stick it up, no go on in my time, and no hands in the air come out, no go on in my time. We no freeze when we have that pan with waist. No freeze thing, no go on. You can't stick me up and me have gun in my waist. You mad? Because in our time it change, you know. It change. Because if them stick you up and find gun pan you, them are going to smash you down. Yeah, so we have to put up a system for resist that. Once you have gun, planner they tell you already, draw a gun and fire. Yeah, we never get them teaching there. Planner, they tell you and I, draw a gun and fire. The court was told that Rollins stirred, then reached for a submachine gun, which was lying beside him on the floor. He was shot and injured. Later, he was taken by ambulance to the Kingston Public Hospital. Further evidence revealed that as the soldier and police entered the room, Henry reached for a weapon and was struck down with the butt of a rifle by a soldier. He and the other 3 were taken to the Central Police Station where they were detained. Yeah, man. We know all about going to Central. Yeah. One night time, I'm tired for going to Central. Every police in a Central, when me I go, know me. Every police in a Central know me when me I go. Every police down a city center. Every police in a Denham town. Every police in a Admiral town. Every police in a Half-a-Tree know the badass. Rockford Police Station, Admiral Town Police Station, Hunts Bay Police Station know the badass. Brag me a brag. And with the road, the police and thief them say, cause them label we, you know, just like how them a label Claudio Henry and him team. 3 counts of murder were laid against Henry, Everidge, Morgan, Al Thompson, William Jeter, and Howard Rollins in relation to the death of Thunder and the other found by the security force in a grave at the abandoned Rastafarian camp in Red Hills. Also charged with these 3 murders were Titus Damon, Rupert Gabidan, Henry Rollins, Jeter Thomas, and Donald Harper, another U.S. Marine. And you know, see that full U.S. Marine team coming, who were all charged with the murder of the 2 Royal Hampshire soldiers, Brian Metterell and David John Philpott. Ronald Henry, Donald Harper, and Titus Drummond were additionally charged with being in possession of a firearm without a license. All these accused were charged with treason, felony, under Section 4, Chapter 390 of the Treason Felony Law, in that they, with other person unknown, did on May 11, 1960, and Driver's Day before and after within the island of Jamaica, maliciously, advisedly endeavor to excite or stir up person to commit act of insurrection by force. Murder victim made to dig their grave. David Coore, later QC, appeared for Donald Harper. This is history now. Yeah, this is Cat Coore father from what? Cat Coore from Third World, him father. Yeah, David Coore. A man that I know personally too. Gladstone Morrison for Jeter and Rowling. W.B. Wilkie, later presiding judge, appeared for Thomas. Basil Rowe for Damon. W.B. Frankson for Ronald Henry. And H.O.B. Ferdinand McCartney for Lawrence and Richburg. All of these defense counsel are all deceased. Yeah, that's why the history and the record is silent. You hear what happened? Everyone that was involved with this trial is now under the ground. Yeah, so the record and the history and the report is silent. Nobody now dig up these things, because most of I don't like read. I don't like when people like myself now wanna get feisty after a while. Sometimes I tell them about, Bunny, your grammar bad. Yeah, my grammar bad, but I still like to read. And I like to dig up things, even though my grammar bad. And you can't grammar shame me. You forgot dig up things for yourself. But that's why I'm so feisty. Because I know what I know. The crippling trial was told by a witness who was present at the execution-style killing of the three Rastafarian cultists that Ronald Henry, who had at that time taken over control of the cult from Beckford, who the boy them called Thunder, ordered each of the deceased to dig their own grave. As each one dug his grave, he was ordered to jump in. Then he was shot through the head. Other Rastafarian, including the witness, were ordered to throw earth. After the three men were killed, he, the witness, was next in line to be executed. Suddenly he said Ronald Henry looked at him and told him he could go. He waited for an opportunity time and escaped. He made a report to the police. This witness was put under the witness protection program and given safe passage out of the island at the conclusion of the case. The first 4 U.S. nationals captured by the security force, along with Everidge, Morgan, David, Ambrister, et al., and charged with the murder of the 2 British Hampshire soldiers, were also tried. Rollins was tried separately, convicted, and sentenced to death for the robbery and murder of the perpetrator of the popular club and bar known as Champion House at the corner of Linders Road and Maxfield Avenue in St. Andrew. Make a divert for a minute. Yesterday, one of them days, me that talk to a youth, and me tell the youth, say, the first party place in Jamaica was Bruce's party place. I just put this night because Joe, it connected to me I talk about now. Before Tastes was Bruce's party place. And there's a youth that come from downtown me that talk to. So him start tell me say him know Bruce's and it down at East Cream Street. Me tell him say me don't know about no Bruce's at East Cream Street. Me know Bruce's from up on Maxwell Avenue. Right here, so. What me just read out. A Champion House. One part of Champion House is the Rick's Theatre. Over the other side, a Bruce's party place. Over the other side of the plaza, I don't remember where they on the other corner of Lenders Road. But that place where me used to, when me a little boy, me used to go up a Rick's Theatre. Rick's Theatre also. Rick's. Me used to go up a Rick's Theatre and them used to have like a signpost, a advertisement signpost, and I as little youth used to climb up in the signpost, and when you look at the signpost stop, it line a little boy heads a watch show in a Rick's. So sometimes when me I read all these things, it draw back memory too. Anyway, that was the corner, Linders Road and Maxwell Avenue in St. Andrew. Anyway, back into the program. During the early treason felony hearing, the court heard evidence from several witnesses, including Charlton Nunn, a mechanic. He testified that he had first visited 78 Roslyn Avenue about 9 a.m. on December 5th, 1959. He saw about 200 to 300 people moving about in the yard. Among them, Reverend Claudius Henry. He took note of 2 men at the gate and over at the back of the yard, and a window from which food could be brought. But some of the people were dressed in blue-black uniform. Sometime later that morning, Henry called a meeting. He said he had an announcement to make. He spoke of a report in the Star newspaper. The report was about activity going on behind the gate of 78 Roslyn Avenue. The reader said they had been worrying about the activity of the church. Go and tell the commissioner of police that is late as the church was declared an army camp, and no police would allow from no one. None testified that Reverend Henry also spoke, telling the gathering that he had been preparing to hold a public meeting, but had to cancel because of the report in the newspaper. Henry said further, Norman Manley, government is preparing 14,000 white soldiers to fight us, but that their blood would run as he had machine guns to fight them. Advising members of his church not to be afraid, the witness said Henry then spoke of his recent trip to the United States and had that they thought he had gone to see his wife, but little did they know that he had been to Russia and to see the king and to see the kings of kings. Henry also spoke of his boys from abroad, about whom he said the government was worrying themselves, but it was what the boys were carrying the government should worry about. Government was also be concerned about the long boots the boys were wearing. But, said Henry, the boots were to trample the dead. after announcing the unveiling of what he called the Black Man flag, witness testify further Henry told members of his church, go and tell the government we have slipped out of their hands. Cross-examined, the witness said he had gone there because he was anxious to go back to Africa. The movement was responsible for attracting him to the church. Immigration officer and sergeant of police Frank Alfred Davis, later senior superintendent of police, now deceased, told of going to 78 Roslyn Avenue accompanied by 2 police officers on the morning of November 30th, 1959. There he saw Reverend Henry, his son, Ronald, and U.S. citizen Michelle Swaby. He told Ronald Henry and Swaby that he was sent by the acting chief immigration officer to tell them that they were to report at police headquarters the following day to be interviewed. Witness informed the court that 4 persons, including Ronald Henry and Swaby, had arrived in the island from the United States on November 28th. Claudius Henry objected to the request, while Ronald shrugged his shoulder and said he would like to meet the acting chief immigration officer. Then, according to the witness, Reverend Henry ordered him to leave his yard and to tell the immigration officer to come himself. But shortly after, Reverend Henry invited none inside his church, where he saw a photograph of the Black Christ, the Black Virgin Mary, and Haile Selassie, whom Reverend Henry acclaimed to be his God. He also showed him pictures of slaves whom he said had been beaten and killed in the United States. The witness related how the Reverend Henry got into a sudden rage and in a high tone of voice said, "It is our time now, and if we do not get what we want, blood will flow. We will not stop until every black man is dead. They bothering me too much. I am going to train an army strong as a lion, and any white man or black man who try to stop me is going to be killed. We are going to free Africa and go home." Hear that? I'm going to address that in our next piece. You know. It was the prosecution case that Henry and his followers and other person unknown on December 5th, 1959 encompass, device and intent to excite insurrection against the government of this island. The defendants preach a doctrine calculate to intimidate, overthrow the government, and they sought to do this by overt act as set out. 1. That Claudius Henry and 15 of his followers, contrary to Section 3 of the Treason Felony Law, Chapter 390, with other person unknown, aforesaid, did maliciously and advisedly meet, propose, threat, consult, conspire, and agree by themselves with force to subvert, overthrow, intimidate the government of Jamaica. 2. That the defendant and other person unknown, as aforesaid, did bring or cause to be brought to and have at 78 Roslyn Avenue a quantity of explosive firearm lethal weapon with the intent to use the same in the accomplishment of their said objective of subverting, overthrowing, intimidating the government of Jamaica. And 3, that they, with the others person, unknown, as I first said, did cause to be printed, written, document, perpetrating to elicit the aid and advice of foreign country to overthrow the government of Jamaica. And 4, that the defendant and other person unknown, as I said, in breach of the treason felony law, section 4, chapter 390, did cause to be written, printed, a document, circulated, stir up, and cause an insurrection in Jamaica with the intention to subvert, overthrow, intimidate the government of Jamaica. The prosecution relied on a number of documents, exhibit in court, as well as evidence from witness. Among the documents were one headed "Standing in the Gap" and another setting up what was called a Council of Righteous Government. Also, there was a letter written to the Commissioner of Police and a member of the government stating, "I may be forced to invade the church." These the prosecution referred to as publication of overt act and took note of the cult reference to Castro as Fidelissimo Castro. The defense also claimed that some of the weapons found in their possession were used for fishing. The other were for worship and to be shipped to Africa when the time came. Each accused denied having any intention of overthrowing the government of Jamaica. Claudius Henry did admit that 2 of the documents were inflammatory. Justice Duffus, before passing sentence, noted, "This is the first trial of its kind, as far as I know, in the history of this island." He mentioned that from as far back as 1935, he had come in contact with the Rastafarian movement through a man named Leonard Howell. I must repeat this because this is history now, real history. This is no make-up white man history. This is our history, our story, being told by one of us. Justice Duffus, before passing sentence, noted, "This is the first trial of its kind, as far as I know, in the history of this island." He mentioned that from as far back as 1935, he had come in contact with the Rastafarian movement through a man named Leonard Howell. So, it later rests here now that Howell is again the founding father, and we don't need to go dig round and I try to prove this. I don't need to add nothing to it neither. Right. Who he said had assumed exactly the same role as self-appointed prophet as Henry was now assuming, to take the people of the country back to Africa. How much time if you telling us that this nation is a back to Africa nation? It is not a one love nation, but a back to Africa nation. So it's time for we make them people come and talk about them, we and them are the same and a one love we are dealing. No. The founding fathers of this nation built it, as I tell you, on a revolutionary back to Africa nation. He continued, it is my view, this doctrine has been allowed to spread. It has been allowed to spread and take hold of the poor, illiterate people of Jamaica. It is wicked, a wicked doctrine. And the people that prey on the unfortunate illiterate person, like a number of you persons here, persons with poor education, I can have no sympathy for them, whatever. Just listen what the judge say. The judge described Rasta as a wicked, illiterate, and it prey persons with poor education. And he have no sympathy for I and I. So ones and ones is only right that we have caution when we come to educated people. Because watch all the educated people are try. Them are try to prove now, say them bright. And them can do it the bright way. And how the bright way turn out. The brighter they get, the more them sell out. Yeah, the brighter them get, the more them sell out. Repeat. The brighter una get, the more una sell out. So me no want a boy who thinks him brighter than I. Particular one, lead eye. Yeah, no boy not lead eye today. In him digesting system. Only 4 of the 15 persons Reverend Henry include responded when asked if they had anything to say why the sentence of the court should not be passed. Edna Fisher, 52, fish vendor, said she did not understand the counts. She wished to prove her innocent. Justice Dufus said, I am afraid it is too late for that. Hear that? Lessell Stone, 19-year-old CL clerk, replied, God and Israel will remember your judgment. Sorry. Wilfred Brown, 36, peanut vendor, peanut man. Not before I get back to Africa, him tell the judge. Say some more, Ark and Peddler. Reply, love and justice. Next week, the lack of legal representation in a case of murder due to non-payment of attorney fee. This report was put together by Sybil E. Ebert, who was a veteran journalist, retired court reporting specialist. So, make me hear a comment now in the comment section, because this is a part of the real history where everybody I try to suppress. Now, let's see how long we go. Now, I'm not going to elaborate too much on what I just put down, because I don't need to, what do I say again? Contextualize it down. The history speaks for itself. I don't want to get too personal in terms of reveal where me know more than. In the comment, you can't tell me what I have problem with and tell me if this is the same Rasta where me just read about. Uno a follow. And if you not follow this level of the freedom of Africa, then tell me why. Yeah. And this also goes to my brethren them in Africa. Yeah. Because my brethren in South Africa, you know, Azana, where I'm going to make him tell you, film take on it. My brother name Amura. Come in, my brother, and come tell me now as an African brother how you feel about all of this.
Rastafari, greetings, Congo man, greetings, General, the commander of Rastafari Revolutionary Forces, I International Rastafari Ambassador, Congo Jahbunny. Greetings, Ella. This is a viewer, from Azania, colonially known as South Africa. Saying, give thanks, Congo man, for the platform. Give thanks for the works that you have done, for Rastafari ever since you started this podcast, which has become, one of the important programs, in our lives in this time, where we are able, to learn a lot about the history of Rastafari from your experience, as you was narrating your thought, you seen, so we have learned a lot, and we have filled a lot of gaps, that were there in our historical, understanding, historical knowledge, of Rastafari, because it is very important that we must understand the history of Aina, where we are coming from, so that we can easily understand where we are and have a clear vision of where we are going. So give thanks, Congo, for standing for I Rastafari family, the Irit of Rastafari, and for projecting Rastafari revolutionary consciousness, which is essential and very important in this time where we find ourselves being, colonized, enslaved, domesticated, alienated, dominated in all areas of life, activity. So really, what you are doing is very important in the advancement of the colonial program, African centered,
a Rastafari program, which must manifest so that even the coming generation can inherit, the proper, history, of Rastafari, so that we can really follow in the footsteps of those who came before us. You see, yes, Congo. Congo man, as you allowed us the space where we will be able, to be part and parcel of this podcast, this family, you see, where we'll be able to own, the space where we are able to share what we think, what we understand, what we find is important for Rastafari. You see, so even Iman in this time is coming forward to raise the importance of African consciousness or African-centered consciousness in Rastafari. That Rastafari is a movement which is coming out of African experience, out of the experience of black people. So it must always reflect the blackness and the Africanness of I and I as African people, as black people, because Rastafari is African consciousness, is to be aware of being African, theoretically, socially, politically, economically, technologically, scientifically, in all aspects is awareness of being African, of being black. It's black awareness, it's African awareness, So really, you have touched a lot on that. You've seen bringing forward, the truth that Rastafari is a revolutionary movement from inception. It was an anti-colonial movement, rebelling against, the colonial, slave master system of colonialism, of enslavement, of domestication. You see, so from that time, Rastafari has proven to be the vanguard of African people, African liberation, with a primary focus on total liberation of African people, where African people have regained and retained their power as a nation, as a race. You see, all African people were taken away from Africa. You see, where they will be given, the chance to come back and repatriate back to the land of their forefathers, whether it is theoretically, physically, but what is important, we need to advance the restoration of African people, And the truth is, Rastafari is African consciousness, and Rastafari as a Pan-African cultural expression, cannot be reduced and confined to any region, province, state, language, or kingdom, but only within the Pan-African world. See, from its inception, Rastafari consciousness, rooted in the universal black people's reality, has been a Pan-African force which embodies the collective aspirations of African people universally, divinely functioning and operating on a Pan-African basis. So the Pan-African nature of Rastafari consciousness, allows it, to be a levity which is capable to raise African people from a narrow interpretation of life based on one's language, tradition, family, and region into a universal Pan-African plane, where universal spiritual language and collective African black interest are catered. Many have tried to define and redefine the nature of Rastafari to suit their own individual, racial, and group interests, sometimes in contradiction to the Pan-African nature of Rastafari. This tendency has manifested itself for different reasons and to achieve different results, but with the same goal of undermining the black-centric Pan-African nature of Rastafari. But one thing that we must always remind ourselves as Rastafari people is the need to maintain the sender, the Pan-African sender of Rastafari. So not to allow Rastafari to be used and misused by certain individuals, groups, and non-Africans to corrupt, neutralize, distort, and divert this Black Power Pan-African movement, rendering it off-centered, visionless, and powerless to execute its historical mission, which is the advancement of the liberation agenda for the total liberation of African people. So Rastafari in reality is a Pan-African expression which we must maintain always, every time, because the Pan-African expression is what actually is the soul of Rastafari. And without that Pan-African spirit, Pan-African expression, Rastafari will be meaningless in the lives of black people, will be irrelevant in the lives of black people. But Rastafari is a Pan-African movement with a Pan-African vision, with advancing a Pan-African cultural expression. Will definitely, the movement will definitely be the embodiment of the aspirations of African people, the vanguard of the African liberation, So it's very important for I to maintain this Pan-African vision, so to sustain the soul of Rastafari, so not to lose the focus and to be diverted from our historical task, historical mission, the ancestral mission, which is the advancement of inner liberation, to restore the dignity, the integrity, the power, and the authority of African people all over the world, here at home and abroad. Give thanks, Congo. Give thanks, Congo, for the time, for the moment, for the space, may the family grow, and the word of righteousness from within, come forward, to heal, to repair, I, and to restore I back to I black self, the African self. Wadada, Commander, Wadada, General, keep the flames of truth burning every time. Rastafari.
Yes, that was one of my fellow vanguard and soldier comrade in arms here in Azana, making connection and letting the world know what Rastafari mean to him and his team of Rastafarian in Azana. But that was a vanguard. So now, let's hear what an African head of state have to say also about the Stradin. Our story we are telling now.
Fellow Africans and citizens of the world, if there is one country in Africa, and indeed in the entire world, which has been influenced by the life and work of Marcus Garvey, it must be Ghana. The first president of our nation, the man who led us in the final phase of our battle for freedom, the legendary Kwame Nkrumah, was a self-confessed apostle of Marcus Garvey and fell under his guidance during his student days in the United States of America in the 1930s. The first national shipping line of our country was named by him the Black Star Line, in deliberate emulation of the Black Star Line, the shipping line established by Marcus Garvey in 1919 to assist in the repatriation of Africans in the United States to their homeland in Africa, and to be the vehicle of trade between the two continents. Again, the proud national flag of our country has the Black Star as its centerpiece. Ghana's debt to Marcus Garvey is thus inescapable. Today, we're gathered all across the world to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the holding of Marcus Garvey's Convention of the Negro Peoples of the World in New York. At that seminal event, the Declaration of Rights of the Negro Peoples of the World was adopted. There can be little doubt about the impetus of the struggle for decolonization and independence that this convention provided. Indeed, the convention, whose 100th anniversary we are commemorating, was one of the critical events in the unfolding emergence of the Pan-African movement. A century on, the vision of an Africa free from colonialism, which was one of the main objects of the holding of the convention, has effectively been realized. And the continent must always remain thankful for its intervention. But I have no doubt that Marcus Garvey, and indeed the 2,000 delegates who attended the convention, wanted more than just to fulfill the dreams of political freedom and independence of their peoples, important as that was. The promise implicit in the drive for liberation was that freedom would inspire the rapid enhancement of the quality of life of the African peoples, and indeed of all black people around the world, and banish the specter of mass poverty bequeathed to the African peoples by the long period of colonial exploitation. Alas, that has not happened for a variety of reasons, some of which do not do us credit. Be that as it may, our generation has an opportunity to rededicate ourselves towards attaining the goals of guaranteeing the liberties and freedoms of the African peoples, employing the immeasurable wealth of Africa to satisfy the needs of the African peoples by resisting the continuous exploitation of her resources by external agencies, eradicating mass poverty in Africa, and promoting the prosperity, dignity, and unity of the African peoples. The name of Marcus Garvey will continue to bear testimony to the necessity of the African peoples on both sides of the Atlantic coming together in mutual solidarity to advance the interests and objectives of black people everywhere in the world. We should never forget the immemorial words of the great Jamaican reggae musician, Peter Tosh, who said, "Don't care where you come from. If you are black, you are an African." I'm an incurable optimist and believe in our capacity to reach these goals. And in doing so, I'm comforted by the words again of Marcus Garvey when he said, "The black skin is not a badge of shame, but rather a glorious symbol of national greatness." I am confident we in Africa, and indeed all black peoples across the world, can achieve the greatness which our forefathers, with Marcus Garvey in the vanguard, dreamt of, and for which some paid the ultimate sacrifice, if we work together. We can do it. May God continue to bless Marcus Mosiah Garvey, Mother Africa, and us all. I thank you for your attention and wish you a successful teleforum.
Yes, that was the president of Ghana. Yeah. So, as you see, we started. Don't care where you look or how you look. We started. And now we are going it too. Yeah. I can't done until every one of I is free. So now that we established certain things, I want to move on again to my good brother. My brother did I tell you a thing or two. So I'm going to make him finish telling now where we are now. So, come in again, King Tonic.
To survive, you know. It come dread. That's why I say dread. And Margaret Heritage established the word there, you know, for dread for be Rasta. Or I love Rasta, I say. But I dread, or I is Rasta, and Rasta make drastic decision in life, you know. So that's where it come. When you deal with unjust people, you know, you have to deal with them dread as Rasta. But you know, have to deal with your brethren and sister in dread to be Rasta. You know. So, but they must say, the majority of Rastafari brethren are peaceful citizens who do not believe in violence. Yeah, we're harmless as a dog, but we are the lion, sleeping lion. You know. Them continue to say nevertheless, since the movement is heterogeneous and include all type of member ranging from complete pacifists at one end to criminal, the mentality, the range and revolutionaries at the other end. So you cannot come and expect all Rasta behaving and acting the same way. From ever since, Rasta is the diversity of people who come together for one cause. Right, and take we from all over Africa. And we are fighting to return home to vine and fig tree. And we have family in Africa, although they take we 400 years, because 400 years is a small time in according to African history. We have millions a year worth of history. So we have we bloodline, we have family, we have the auntie and we uncle down there. You know. So that's where the revolutionary birth from, the revolutionary, where we are speak the high rates, where we are talk about for I have to change from this colonial ways to our rightful natural way of life. Babylon continue to say the language of the movement is violence. Because when I say back to Africa, them see it as violently speaking. For repatriation mean all school must end and all work what going on in the system supposed to end. And our announcement supposed to be on the world news. Just like when Russia war, just like when them go down at Saddam, just like when them blow on the World Trade Center. Repatriation must depend on the world news.
You're so correct, my brother. And I think I'm gonna pause right there and pick it up forward at some other time. So until such time, keep it locked, keep it tuned, because we're moving forward to Africa. I say, we're moving forward to Africa. So stay tuned for the updates. Live one perfect love for us.